Hey everyone, James LaBrie from Dream Theater, and you're listening to or watching the podcast Talking into Infinity with JT and Brian. Enjoy this. These guys are extremely informative. I love their dialogue. I love their interpretation of the songs, who and what we are, what we were going after. They're very accurate in their interpretations and descriptions, and I just think this is a great show, and these guys are doing a stand-up stellar job. So once again, enjoy Talking into Infinity with JT and Brian.
What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of Talking into Infinity, a Dream Theater podcast. We are live right here every other Thursday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Facebook, YouTube, talkingintoinfinity.com, and the cmsnetwork.com. If you'd like to catch video replays of the show, just go to our YouTube page, or you can find them on Heavy Metal Television, our main hub, the week after the show airs on Friday. And if you want to catch the audio replays of the show, just pretty much Google Talking into Infinity podcast, and we're on almost any audio platform that you can think of. Without further ado, I'd like to bring in my very good friend and co-host, Mr. Brian Hendrickson. How's it going, man?
What's going on, man? Today is a very special day, and I don't know if you know this or not. I got this off of the internet, which is always super reliable.
Okay.
Supposedly, it's the 40th anniversary for one of my all-time favorite metal albums, Black Sabbath Mob Rules.
I did not know that.
I didn't either. It says it was released November 4th, 1981. Now, I did some quick math on that. That is 40 years. But, yeah, I mean, great album. So, happy 40th to Mob Rules, I guess.
Now, do you prefer that or Heaven and Hell?
You know, I like the sound of Mob Rules better in terms of, like, the overall songs on the album. Probably my two favorite songs are on Mob Rules, but the album as a whole, I believe Heaven and Hell, I think is better. How about you?
I think I would agree with your assessment. I think the songs are a little stronger on Heaven and Hell. Also, you know, I don't know. There's something about that record that hits me a little harder than Mob Rules did. So I mean, they're obviously they're both Ronnie James Dio, which kicks ass.
Yeah.
So they're really basically comeback records, because the last few Ozzy Sabbath albums were pretty crappy. But you know,
yeah.
If I had to pick just one, it would probably be Heaven and Hell. Same as you. So.
Yeah, my favorite, and I think an underrated song on Mob Rules, Voodoo. I love that song. I love that guitar riff. I think that's like one of the most underrated, greatest Iommi guitar riffs of all time. So that would be my favorite song on the two albums, probably. So that's probably why I said like that and Mob Rules as far as songs. But yeah, as far as the whole album, man, Heaven and Hell, like you listen to that, that's absolute perfection from beginning to end.
Yep, totally agree. Before we get into some Dream Theater, JG3, good to see you again, man. He disputes us. He says Dehumanizer is the best Dio album. That song Time Machine, that was from Bill and Ted, that song kicks ass. That's a great riff, man.
Yeah, how do we ban people again from the show? I forgot. Do you
not agreeing with JG3,
huh? I saw that tour, and then it ended up being I don't even think Dio ended up coming on that. They ended up going back to Tony Martin again. It was like the whole thing was weird, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I'm not too well versed in Black Sabbath like you are, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, it was at Nautica, and I swear to God, I think at like the last minute that everyone's like, I don't think Dio's going to be singing, so I don't know. I got to look that up to verify. But speaking of music, I got to go to a killer show just real quick before we get into it. Got to go see Gojira last Friday, and I know some other friends of yours went too. Yeah, you said some other buddies of yours. So what are your thoughts on that band? Have you ever even tried to listen to him, or you're just like, no?
Not really. Yeah. I would be lying if I said I've listened to more than a few songs.
Okay. Yeah, I love the heaviness, the doom sludginess, and I like all the cool effects they put on his vocals. I mean, he's not, he's just a rock vocalist. He's not a singer by any means. We know that. But man, like the light show, and I mean, I still probably have fog and smoke on me. Like it never stopped the entire night. The entire stage and the whole theater was just full of like fog machines and smoke machines, and it was awesome, man. I mean, you know the feeling of seeing a show at the Agora. It's like it's in the worst, most horrible neighborhood, so you can't go do anything else before or after anywhere near there.
Right.
But as soon as you walk into that venue and like, you know, and if you're down on the floor and you're up by a stage, or if you're up on the balcony and you're sitting looking around, you're like, there's no better place to see a concert. I mean, it's just an iconic killer, just has that grit. Like, this is the place you want to see, especially like a heavy or like a metal show, or you and I got to see Sammy there, which was awesome too. But but yeah, shout out to Gojira. I mean, it's like crazy. So they can come over here from France and do a full tour, but you know, we have all these American bands that cancel, but hey, shout out, you know, props to them for this concert still going. You know, it was cool though, because you know they checked everyone's. You had to have a vaccine card or show a proof of a test.
Sure.
And they gave you a wristband. You know, you could not even get into where they scan your tickets until you had the wristband.
Yep.
You know, so anyway, great show, and looking forward to this show.
Yeah, man, definitely. I noticed your veiled annoyance at the fact that 1 week from tomorrow we were supposed to be in Akron catching the A View from the Top of the World tour.
Yep.
I still can't believe that's postponed, man. I saw that on my calendar today. I was like, damn it. So, but we could still go see Jeff Tate at the Beachland Ballroom. So we do have a show we can go to. We can watch him do the entire Rage for Order album as well as the entire Empire record. So we do have a musical option next Friday if we want it. So
good question by Kale there. That is the band that opens with that screen in front of the stage in the Old Time Countdown. It's pretty hilarious because it's like it starts down at like I think it starts at 210, which is like a weird number, and it's just counting down literally 1 second at a time all the way down to 0. And of course the crowd gets in on it and they're chanting and yelling it out and stuff. But yeah, that's
okay.
awesome, man. But so are we gonna go to Jeff Tate? Have you decided you're going for sure or what?
Honestly, it's going to be a game time decision next week. I think I'm going to be like, let's go to Jeff Tate on Friday.
Okay.
You know, we'll see.
So I better keep my phone on me then, huh?
Yeah. I mean, I saw it when it came around. Was it 19? No, I think it was like, was it the last show I saw? The second to last show that I saw before everything went on lockdown in 2020. Because it was Jeff Tate, and then you and I went to see Sons of Apollo.
Yep.
So, I mean, it's good. And from what I understand, Jeff Tate sounds even better now. So, you know, I wouldn't mind seeing it. So, and we'll see. It's cheap. I think it's only like $22 or something. So, I mean, it's totally worth it. So, I mean, we'll see, man. I'm definitely interested. You know, I'm so pissed off about Dream Theater that it's like the air is kind of out of my sails. So that's kind of, you know.
Well, we'll talk during the week and figure it out, because I think the closer it gets, the more I'm like, man, I better go see this, because you know these kind of opportunities are just, like I said, they're gonna start really dwindling as these guys get older and as we get older. So it's like, you know, if it's within an hour of your house and it's $22, like pretty dumb for me not to go. I mean, you've already seen it, so I guess I could understand that. But
sure. Oh, look at this. T-Bone drum covers. Tommy Allen, our buddy that was on for our Train of Thought episode. What's up, Tommy? Good to see you, man.
Nice.
Thanks for jumping in. Appreciate it, man. All right, so we have a Dream Theater question here that we'll get to real quick before we jump into tonight's topic. So Joe Gebhardt wants to know, and we'll do this real quick, and then get into our thoughts on James LaBrie. What's everyone's thoughts on the new album after a week of sinking in? So very briefly for me, I've listened several more times. It's still growing on me. I really like it. As I said before, it hasn't grabbed me like Distance Over Time. There's still not a ton of riffs and hooks and stuff that are just embedded in my skull, or like peanut butter on the roof of your mouth, as some people like to say. But it's very good. It's definitely a grower, and in listening to some songs in preparation for tonight's episode, you can definitely tell that they're in a groove, writing-wise and chemistry-wise. So, where do you stand?
Yeah, it's not hitting me as hard as I thought it would. There's like 3 songs I totally love, and then the rest I'm still kind of sort of on, I think it's going to take time. I mean, I think we've already, without any type of a spoiler, we pretty much, we know this is not going to be, we're not going to probably put this ahead of Distance Over Time. I don't think that's going to happen, but that's okay. Yeah. I mean, that's an absolutely amazing album for a band to put out that late in their career,
Yep.
And I think to expect them to just top that, that's a pretty big task,
Right. So, all right. Well, so that's where we stand 2 weeks out from the release of the new record. So let's jump into tonight's topic. This is something that you and I were going to do a couple episodes ago, and you had to drop off the show. So we saved it until tonight. And this is one that I've been excited for because it's going to be difficult for me not to fanboy on this one. Especially those of you that have listened to my solo episode know my feelings on James LaBrie. But we are going to get into our top James LaBrie vocal moments on tonight's show. As I said, I am definitely a massive fanboy for James LaBrie. I was listening to a whole ton of stuff in preparation for this, and I like so many things that he does that it was a little difficult for me. I actually did not get up to 10 because there were 8 that just stood out so much to me. And then there was like a second tier of several things. And I'm like, you know what? I'm not even going to go with second tier. I'm just going with my, I have 8 unbelievable moments for me. How many did you end up coming up with?
I ended up with 10. I was kind of stuck on 9 for a while. And I had 3 or 4 that were on the fence. And then all of a sudden one hit me and I'm like, oh yeah, I got this. This has to be in there.
Right.
So I ended up with 10.
Yep. Kale McLeish, don't lose power or get sick. We're in a Members Top Moments episode. We will do our best, Kale. We will do our best. All right, so I'm wondering if you and I will have any duplicates. I know you sent me a funny email today, like how many songs off of Awake or Train of Thought am I going to have to sit through?
Yeah, exactly.
When you go through your list. So that was funny. But all right, since you have more than I do, I'm going to let you go first. I'm actually saving my number 1 for the end. Okay. So I don't know how you want to do yours, but my number 1 is going to be at the end.
Okay, that's fine. I ended up putting Octavarium at 10, the song.
That is like right up at the top of my like second tier. Mine is from Score. I pulled from a live record.
Okay.
So yours, I assume, is the album version.
Yeah, I'm not as familiar. I didn't go to the show, but I don't own I've seen the video before, and I've seen stuff on YouTube, and I've actually seen the whole concert, but I don't, for me to go and actually pick that out ahead of it, no. But yeah, I picked Octavarium. I mean, there's a certain power in his voice that it doesn't get raspy, and it doesn't feel like he's using a lot of effort. And there's only one other song, maybe 1 or 2 other songs I think in their catalog where I could really feel like, man, that power is really coming through there, but he's not using a lot of effort, and the highs are not getting pinched off. And man, he just goes for it on that tune. And of course the melody in that song is just so intoxicating. So yeah, Octavarium, it has to be in there.
Yeah, good call, man. I think he uses a lot of different, aspects of his voice, which is kind of a theme with my list. And the reason that I chose the version from Score is because, I mean, yeah, he gets breaks here and there, obviously in the live environment, but to nail that as strongly as he did is absolutely incredible. And I was at the show, and I know that there's not a lot of studio magic on that live record. I mean, he was absolutely on point that night.
Nice.
And especially, that end part, like, when he's doing that scream is just outrageous.
Yep.
And, that's at the end of, a 3-hour show, and all those crazy lyrics about Lucy in the sky with diamonds and having to remember all that stuff.
Yep.
It's just like, it's crazy. Adam Rishog, what's up, man? You're able to make it tonight. Good to see you, buddy. It's been a long time. So our good friend Adam Rishog says, Octavarium is James at some of his best. That trapped inside this Octavarium screaming part is just crazy. I've never heard that side of his voice before. Yep. Just like I was saying, man, that is definitely a huge highlight of that song, especially live, to be able to pull that off. So, T-Bone drum covers. Before I get into my first one, he says, our buddy Tommy, In the Name of God is my number 1. Of course, it's from Train of Thought. I actually listened to that song today thinking that I was like, okay, I'm going to listen for some stuff that's on the heavier side of James's voice. And for some reason, I remembered that being a little heavier vocally for him, and I didn't hear it listening to it today. So I actually don't have that one, Tommy. So that is not on my list. But my first choice, this is not my number one. Again, I'm giving my number one last.
Yep.
I'm starting my list off. Again, this is not in any particular order until my last one. Innocence Faded from Awake. So right off the rip, you were right. I pulled something from Awake. But I've always been a big fan of that song. And, you know, especially when they pulled it out in score, I was like, yes. So I thought, you know, that this is a great choice because it literally, he uses all facets of his voice on this one. You know, you've got the really breathy, mellow stuff. You got just his standard rock voice, the high, really clean stuff. You know, and even when he goes really high, he just holds down this melody. And it's so catchy. And it's just, the song is just beautiful melodically, and his voice just highlights the different sections of the music perfectly for me.
Yeah, if I would have picked anything off Awake, it would definitely be Innocence Faded. I've said before that's one of my favorite songs, and I'm very jealous that I didn't realize they played it on score. So that's another reason I'm bummed I missed that. But yeah, I guess this goes back to one of my criticisms against Awake. I wish more of the stuff had the giant melodic hooks that Innocence Faded has, because I don't know, I just don't hear him on that album the way that you do, I guess, and some other people do. But
okay.
I love that song. I love every choice he makes in that, and it's just such a huge, massive chorus, and that little riff under there just fits perfect.
Yeah, totally agree with you. All right, so what is next on your list?
I have At Wit's End. So this will be like the one song that made for guitar for Petrucci and for LaBrie.
Right.
And specifically, you know, his best part comes in, I think, right before that awesome guitar part. You know, that super high part, that playing over to Stop Pretending, Walked Inside, It's Never Ending. And then the guitar comes in with that awesome melody, and he starts to Don't Leave Me Now, Don't Leave Me Now. I absolutely love that part. And as much as that guitar makes the hair stand off the back of my neck when he goes in that vocal part, and I know it's coming right then and there, I love it. And you're going to find, too, on a lot of my choices, I have these parts where they're mostly kind of towards the end of the song, where it's like they didn't do this the entire rest of the song, but it's this huge giant crescendo that leads to this massive big ending, you know. And it's like I love when Dream Theater does that in their music.
Yeah, I think that, like you said, I think this is more of a guitar song for me. The vocal is great. This is, you know, this record to me is full of hooks, and maybe this is blasphemy considering some of the stuff that came before it, but, you know, Distance Over Time for me might be their hookiest record in a way, vocally. So I definitely agree with you in terms of the melody on this song. I just think that I've picked other stuff that I think stands out a little more vocally, at least to me. But it is a great performance. So, by the way, if my camera jumps here, my cat Bubba has decided he'd like to be a part of the show. So my camera, he loves to bump that camera, man. So, Joe Gebhardt says Trial of Tears is probably my number one. Ashes, nothing but ashes. Dude, that's my favorite Dream Theater song. That is a great choice. That is in my second tier. So
wow.
Excellent.
That shocks me.
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm sure. My favorite song is in my favorite James moments. Go figure. So next on my list, I have the version from the Greatest Hits. I have To Live Forever. Something about this song has always stood out to me. I've just loved what James does on this song. And, you know, I just love that, you know, that clean guitar that starts the song out. And when James comes in all breathy, like, if I'd started from the top. I mean, it's like, that just sounds so cool to me. And I don't know. It's always stood out. And it's funny because I always wondered, like, why don't they have this on, you know, on an actual album? There's Bubba. And, you know, I finally read at some point that Portnoy said, well, we've released, like, you know, fans have like 5 different versions of this song, so we didn't need to put it on a record. So, you know, and even though there are multiple versions and there's different bridges and stuff like that, it's always just such a catchy, just beautiful song for me. And James's voice is just so perfect for it. And I love it. I absolutely love it.
Did they play this? Was it the Images and Words 25th they played this at?
Yes, we in Greenville, Pennsylvania, the show that we saw.
Okay.
I remember I was freaking out. I was like, yes, to live forever. Oh my God. Like, I was so pumped up about that.
Yeah, this song I don't really, I went back. I had never heard it before until we saw it then, and you're going crazy, and I'm like, what is this? Like, so I went back and listened to it after that a few times. Yeah, cool song. I don't know, a whole lot about it. I've only listened to it a few times, to be honest. It definitely sounds like one of their older type of songs, but cool.
Yeah. So Tommy says, T-Bone drum covers, hollow years from falling into infinity. The modulation into the last chorus give me chills. He doesn't hit many high notes, but what he does sing is fantastic. So one of my almost made it songs on here, Brian, was Hollow Years from Live at Budokan. Where do you stand on that one?
I had Hollow Years, just the studio one was just about almost made it, which is weird because I know I said for a fact on a different show that this was possibly my favorite James vocal performance of all time. And then, of course, I don't even put it in the top 10 once I start digging into stuff. But yeah, I agree. The modulation at the end is awesome. And is there something different in the live version, or just the performance is awesome? Or
I think it's the performance. I mean, he does do it a hair differently, but I think it's just the emotion in it, really. At least for me. I know when I first, got that live record, that song just immediately jumped out to me. I love Hollow Years. I mean, Falling Into Infinity is my favorite record, and that song live is just always cool. And to me, that's the best live version they've done of that song. And I think the vocal has a lot to do with it. So, all right, what is next on your list?
I put the title track from Astonishing, which I guess is the last song on the album.
Yeah.
Technically. I love again, this is another one of those, especially when it gets towards, it's not a very, I don't think this is 5 minutes, not a super long song.
No, it's like 4.5, I think.
Yeah, not even that. So, I love the end of it. Again, it's just, it just starts building up to this huge emotional climax, which you're obviously going to get anyway, because it's the last song of a ginormous 2-disc concept album. But he sounds great on this song, and just another, very cinematic type of Dream Theater, which I always love from them.
Yep. And I think what stands out on that song in particular is that, he's doing multiple characters within the same song.
Yep.
The hallmark of that record is him going in and out of different characters, different voices and stuff like that. And, that song, I think it's got 3 different characters in there, maybe 4, something like that. But yeah, and in such a short, period of time to go in and out of that is just, it's awesome. And we saw him do it live, and he pulled it off beautifully. So yeah, I think that's a good call on your part. I definitely do. All right, so next on my list, I have Another Day from Images and Words. One of the ones I feel is probably an obvious choice. I know that, when you first listen to Images and Words, of course, Pull Me Under, and you're like, oh, sweet, Pull Me Under. And then Another Day comes on, which I've always thought was an interesting choice to have kind of a ballad second. And his voice is just soaring in that, especially, obviously, at the end, by another day, that super, super, super high note. And he's just all over the place on this one. It's such a showcase song. And to me, I've always kind of thought of this as almost like the quintessential James tune. I think when a lot of people think of James LaBrie, this is the sort of song, if not the song, people think of. So for that reason, it definitely made my list. And as I said, that super high note at the end is just, it just caps the song off beautifully.
Yeah, I actually had Another Day. Well, we didn't decide exactly how we're doing this, but I've got it on my list here. Just a great showcase for his, hitting those super high, clean notes. Then it goes to that, they took pictures of our dreams. He's like way, way up there in the stratosphere.
Yep.
Singing on those parts. And the melody just keeps kind of building and building, and they're like, man, is there a single like wrong note choice, for this vocal line or these progressions? Because they're just total ear candy.
Right.
So yeah, for sure, another day.
All right. Let's go to the next one on your list.
I have Bridges in the Sky.
Really?
Yeah, I love the chorus and in that shaman take me home. It just, I don't know. You could just, you literally feel like you're flying when they kind of get that chorus going, and then that part's at the end. Like, I really do feel like I'm soaring in the clouds on some of those parts. I love that song.
Okay. I think I'm gonna disagree with you on this one. That song is good, but it didn't really do much for me. I think, I do have a complaint actually about the vocal, and that, take my hand, I like how it goes up, but then at the end it goes down, and I'm like, it just seems anticlimactic to me. If anything, I would have done it in the reverse order. It's a good song, but I think, for that one, or for the purposes of our discussion, I should say, it doesn't really grab me. So I think
I'm not shocked. You're on record as being a full hater of dramatic turn of events.
I am not on record as being a full.
Oh,
hater
you're
of
on record like 45 times. Like
I am no such thing. I am no such thing. And we have not done our deep dive, and you'll find out when we do our deep dive what my feelings on that record are.
Yeah, that it's even worse than I imagined, probably. Oh, hang on. We just got a message from Mike Portnoy. His favorite LaBrie performance is Erotomania. Okay, that's not funny, Portnoy. That's not funny.
Oh my God, that's a good one, dude. Oh, that's funny. Yeah, are you sure it wasn't Dance of Eternity?
Right.
Kale says it. He says, I remember you not liking Bridges when I pulled it out in the set list draft. Yeah, like I say, it's a good song. It's just it just doesn't grab me. So, not my thing. So, however, JG3, he agrees with you. He says, I agree. Bridges is a great performance.
Which means he is not a hater of dramatic turn events, as you are.
You know what, man? Seriously. Just because I don't think it stands out to me does not mean I hate the album. All right? I don't hate any Dream Theater albums.
Okay.
I severely dislike one song and always skip it, and that's it. And again, we'll save that for the album deep dive when that one comes up. But yeah, I do not hate that album. So just to prove that I don't hate it, the next one in my list is actually not from that record. So my next one is Looking Through Her Eyes from Metropolis 2000 Scenes from a Memory. That one has always seemed really personal to me, the performance, the sound of it. And also, I think I have kind of like an emotional connection to that one because part of the poetry that, is in the lyrics was close to something that my mom said at my grandfather's funeral. So it kind of, the very first time I heard that, I was like, oh my God, that's like what Mom said at Grandpa's funeral. So
oh wow,
so that song has always kind of had like a personal, just that little extra personal connection for me. But I think the way that he delivers it and, the content of the lyrics, it just, how you said, like when you listen to Bridges in the Sky and you're talking about, oh, well, I feel like I'm flying, and when I hear this chorus and stuff like that, for me, like I can picture a guy kind of sitting there in a cemetery in front of this headstone, and it's a little overgrown and stuff like that. Grass needs mowed, whatever, and he's just really into the emotion of the moment, and it's just really affecting him, and I totally get that vibe off of that. And so for me, I think, that's, it's one thing for the lyrics to hit you personally, but I think when the performance itself really drives the point home, I think that's really what makes a great vocal. I mean, it's probably obvious to say that, but that's, really how I feel. And I think this one is a perfect example of that.
Yeah, great song. I'm kind of surprised I didn't put it on here. I thought about it for a minute, but I'm like, I was kind of trying to find something a little bit different because this would, for the stuff that I love, this would be like so obvious for me to put it on there. But probably one of my all-time favorite, just piano and vocal together, just kind of just a basic melody. There's nothing super complicated about what's going on, but man, it is, like you said, it is an emotional powerhouse of especially if you've got some kind of personal connection to it as well. Like, I mean, this thing, it's a light song, but this, when you get this thing going in your earbuds, I mean, it hits you like a ton of bricks, when you just focus in on it. It's powerhouse song, and love the vocals on it.
Yep, agree. Our buddy Tommy says, Panic Attack is great. James has a Muse-type vocal with the high falsetto that he doesn't feel often, if not at all. Yeah, that's actually a good call, man. I didn't think of that one. That's really, that the middle part, the helpless stereo, like that is, and I was talking about this on another show that really kind of adds to the frenetic vibe of the song. It's titled Panic Attack, and I think the vocal really adds to that. That's a good call, man. I would agree with you there.
Yeah, that's something you don't really hear him do in any other song, so it's cool that it's it's very unique from that standpoint.
Yep, totally agree. All right, what do you have next on your list?
I actually have from the last album you just picked. I put Strange Deja Vu, which means this song I think now has made it on like 3 different lists. I think I took it in the draft, and I think I picked it on our Gateway songs, and I might have even picked it on the Petrucci. So that might be on all 3. I love the chorus on this. The way it soars up there at the end. Like I just keep sort of hammering away at with these songs what he does that at. And I love his performance. I love he's got the power behind it, but it's clean. But it comes across great.
Yeah, that's definitely a banging intro song. I didn't pick this one because I think it's just pretty much, a straight up rock performance. But I'm with you. He's really powerful on that. It's a great intro to the record, and he just, sounds, to me, he's always sounded really muscular on this. Like it's clean, but he just really comes out of the gate just with power. And I remember, that tour was the first time I'd ever seen them live. And I remember the first time he opened his mouth and did that song live, I was like, holy crap. I had never heard it. It reminded me like of a weightlifter. Like you see somebody lifting like huge dumbbells, and that kind of power, like that's what his voice sounded like through the PA to me that night. I was like, wow, this guy's got some serious pipes. So yeah, I think that's a great choice. Again, I think my stuff is a little more varied than just his rock voice because we have a lot of choices in that realm. But if you're gonna pick one, I think that's a great one. Look at JG3. Okay, you can't do that, man. I don't know if it's going to count as different songs, but 6 Degrees would definitely be on my list, especially the finale. All right, so if JG3 was on the show, would we accept the entire 6 Degrees suite? We accepted it in our draft.
Yeah, which we should not have. I've been firmly on record as saying, Adam.
See, I wanted to try and catch you in that one again.
I know. No.
All right. So Brian says no, Jay. I say it would be okay because I have to stick with what I said on a previous show, and that's that it counts.
I will say though, Joe Gephardt, there's your album again. I did have Lifting Shadows Off a Dream as a almost made it.
Yeah, that's a good one too. I have that on my almost made it list also.
Really super like understated, just kind of he just sort of goes with the song there. He doesn't get too crazy with it, but it fits perfectly, with what they're doing there.
I like a lot of stuff on Awake, vocally. I always wonder what the hell would have happened had he not had that stupid breakfast accident with his voice in Cuba, after the first leg of that Awake tour, because his voice on the Awake album was just absolutely killing it. And then, there people have said, that saw the first leg of the tour that he was absolute money in the bank. And then after that, he himself said he didn't feel after that, rupturing a vocal cord thing, he didn't feel fully right again until the 6 Degrees tour. So it took him a good 7 years. And I really wonder, what sort of permanent damage that did, because man, he sounded good on that album. So yeah, that's a good call, man. Lifting Shadows off a Dream. And again, Awake for me is just a great vocal record. So my next choice, and this might be a weird one, but it's on the heavier aspect of things. I have In the Presence of Enemies Part 2. So I've always really dug this because, Dark Master, and stuff like that. It's almost like a James Hetfield type of a delivery in parts of it. And it's definitely one of his grittiest, if not the grittiest vocal that he's ever done. And again, something that fits the vibe of the music perfectly. Sometimes he'll get into a heavier vocal over something that doesn't really need quite as heavy, or you'll get a really heavy riff where he's a little clean and you're like, ooh, you dirty that up a little bit. But I think this is one of those awesome examples where he just absolutely nails the feel of what's going on behind him.
Do you think in those situations Portnoy tells him to sing that way, that style? I'm curious.
I would be almost certain that that would be, Portnoy's idea, because I think, that's not his natural way of singing.
Right.
On Awake, when you had those high, gritty, screaming parts,
mm-hmm.
When he did those, it called for it. And you can tell that they were when he was going high. And your natural instinct is to kind of like really put your nuts into it when you're reaching for high notes like that. So you could see, that would make sense. But on stuff like this, especially considering the fact that this is, starting to become where Portnoy really started to take over things, and he, got into the Cookie Monster vocals and stuff. I would have to think that it's definitely Portnoy saying, yeah. Cale McLeish agrees. He says, yes, wouldn't pick it myself, but you're right on here. And again, a little bit of acting in it as he pulls back a little as Heretic versus the all out of the Dark Master's voice. Yeah, it fits the vibe perfectly, man. So, Joe Gebhardt, here we go. He said, James said in a recent interview that how he sang on Awake was his idea. Yeah, it sounds more natural. It really, really does sound more natural on Awake, because that's, again, if you're gonna get way up there, of course you could break into a scream when you got lungs like that guy.
Right.
JG3, he agrees with us. Portnoy was definitely pushing that style on James on Systematic Chaos, and I think you can kind of see some of that stuff in if you've got the making of blue DVD that came with the CD for that record. You can kind of see some direction there. So, yeah. All right. So what is next on your list?
I have, I guess it's pretty basically a Captain Obvious here. Breaking All Illusions. So, the whole thing is great, but I love the ending. Again, you get the final guitar solo, and then Jordan's kind of got his little keyboards backing it up or whatever. And then you got the searching out, that goes the high part. And then there's that little quiet part, and then again it crescendos up to all the way that just massive, huge note at the end that Karma starts the signal part. I love that. It's just like, it's just a perfect end to a perfect song. Like that song is just kind of so relentless throughout the whole thing, in terms of just the melody, and the harmonies are just kind of spinning around. Then you get the cool solos at the end. You're like, man, how are they going to get? How are they going to get out of this to end it? And it just all fits perfect.
Yep. I what I love about this song is that chorus is just so big, and I think you nailed it. That they coming out of that solo section, like how are they gonna, how are they gonna come out of this? You got that massive chorus, and then you've got that perfect part that closes after that. And I was just listening to that again today, ironically. So funny that it made your list, and it's like that perfect ending of a show. Like you know,
Yep.
and you kind of knew that though when you listen to the record the first time. You're like, okay, this is going to be, you know, the last song they do before the encore. You can see, you know, Petrucci holding out the chords and waving like bye 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 bye.
Yeah,
like,
right.
but yeah, I'm definitely not surprised this one's on your list. You and I have both been on record as saying this is one of our all-time favorite Dream Theater songs. So for this to be on your vocal list is not a surprise, and I think it's a great choice. I think you're spot on your stuff there. All right, so I have a few left, and I'm gonna go with my obvious one, and then one I don't think anybody is really gonna get because it's kind of hard to find. I think, or maybe it was just hard to find for me, but. And then I'll do my number one. So my next one, and this might be a little obvious because of the length of it, but I have A Change of Seasons. You know, I think, excuse me, what stands out about this one for me is that their other epic songs are, you know, they're kind of known for their as I can't talk, musicianship. You know, people remember all the multiple parts and the different riffs and the different, you know, the solos and all the different things going on. And I don't think the vocals are really talked about in any of the other ones the way that they are in this song. You know, it again, I come back to, you know, when James really has to put some emotion into something, he absolutely nails it in most cases. And I think this is a good example of that. And this song has a whole bunch of hooks, even though there's a whole bunch of different parts. You can remember the vocal melodies from each part, like so many of them. It's really, really distinctive. And I think the other reason that I really like this one is because I think this was like really the first time for me. I don't know where other people stand on this one, but I think this is the first time that I really went, okay, you know, this guy can really hang with the rest of the guys because, you know, for the prior two records, you know, you've got Images and Words and Awake, and he was great. You know, don't get me wrong, he was definitely great. But it was holy crap the musicianship. And I think hearing A Change of Seasons, I kind of went, okay, you can hear why this guy is the singer for for these guys. You know, he can definitely, he's you know, the level that Petrucci's at as a guitar player and Portnoy is at as a drummer, you know, et cetera, et cetera. James LaBrie is at as a vocalist. And I think this was really the first time that I noticed that.
There is a certain timbre and power, more so the timbre and the tone of his voice on this song and this album that is not on any other albums. And I wish they knew, or I knew, or somebody knew what they did to get that kind of performance and that kind of a sound out of him, because it really is the most, there's just real huge balls and power behind his voice, and it sounds very, very, very effortless. And I don't know if it's the microphones they use, you know, or maybe it's because it's back then, so everyone's not, you know, doing everything through Pro Tools 3 million times and redoing it. But there's just something about his voice, like if you listen to just the way he enunciates words and the tone that comes out, it just, there's no other album where his vocal sounds like this. And I love his vocal in the song. I'm not a fan of the music at all, other than maybe the beginning and the music when he's actually singing. The rest of it, I've always kind of felt is just sort of thrown together and doesn't necessarily fit. It's like, oh, well, now we're jump to this part and jump to that part. But that doesn't take away from the fact you pointing out it is a great vocal. And yeah, again, I wish I knew what it was, because I guarantee you sit down and listen to, you know, the album right after, album right before, and you hear how his voice sounds and the way he's like pronouncing and the way his voice is just cutting through the whole mix. It's totally different. So I can completely get your theory of like, okay, now I really think he can hang with the band.
Yeah. Kale asks a good question, and I'm trying to remember. He says, my question is, when was the vocal for A Change of Seasons released? I think you mean recorded, because wasn't it recorded post vocal injury? And if it was recorded after that, it really doesn't show. I know you did ask about the release. That it was released after Awake. It came between Awake and Falling Into Infinity. I know that. As for when it was recorded, they took a break in the Awake tour to do it, if I remember right. And I can't remember if it was before or after the injury. I'm with you. It doesn't sound like it was, whatever happened to him was affecting him. Man, I'll have to go back and look at the Lifting Shadows book to see, because I know they recorded it during the Awake tour, because after the Awake tour they did the Ronnie Scott's gig, which they recorded, and that's where the live tracks for the Change of Seasons EP came from. But I don't remember if he recorded that vocal before or after he had that breakfast thing in Cuba. So we'll have to find out, man. That's a good question. I ought to know that, but you would think the host of a Dream Theater show would know that, but apparently you'd be wrong. So, all right. So what is next on your list?
All right, are you sitting down?
Uh-oh.
You strapped into your chair?
Yes.
I have the Illumination Theory.
Okay. All right.
Now, I know your hate for this song, and I actually don't like it as a song. I will be the first to admit I do not like it as a song.
Okay.
So let me break this down for you. 85% of this tune I think is kind of garbage. But
Damn.
It takes like 15 minutes, okay? We finally get to Jordan and John trading off solos, and then Jordan goes into this big giant string part. And then you get that just huge, massive, powerful vocal that to really feel the joy in life, that part, like, there's like 4 or 5 verse lines to that or whatever. That's just like, it just tears your heart out. Like, I love that, because it doesn't do that. It doesn't do anything like that the entire rest of the song. Nothing sounds like that at all. And it's just once again, man, you end the song just perfectly with this awesome, just super powerful vocal and super meaningful, super insightful, lesson, really. And it's like, God, why did it take us 16 minutes to get here? Like, what the hell happened? Like, it's just such a disjointed goof. It's got that, like, I don't know, it's almost a 2.5 minute, where it sounds like they put a movie score soundtrack in the middle of it, Jordan's string thing. And it's like
the part before that where it's almost like it's like a meditation CD of like forest noises.
Yep.
That was interesting. I'm surprised you brought up the end vocal, because the vocal that always stood out to me in this one was the mothers with the children, mothers for their wives. Like, when he's just doing that scream part, like, that is like vintage James.
Yeah, no, there's no melody to that, though. That's just like I don't know. There's just something like, and the funny part about it is I never really, so when we were doing like looking at prog, like at their list of prog stuff, and I was like going through and like, okay, I want to give Illumination Theory another try. And I was out walking my dog, and I'm like, okay, this is blah, blah, blah. And all of a sudden I'm like, wait, did I just skip to another, like, is there another song in here I didn't know about? And all of a sudden that part comes in, and I'm like, what the hell? Where did this come from? I never knew this was on here until, like, I don't know, 6 months ago or whatever it was.
That happened to me the last time I did that. I was listening to that song, and I was working, and I forgot to turn it off when it ended, quote unquote, air quotes.
Right.
And all of a sudden piano comes in, and I was like, what the? Oh, I forgot about that. It's like, oops, forgot that was at the end of this one.
Yeah,
so,
but yeah, I love that part. I mean, it's awesome.
All right. Well, so we each like a part of Illumination Theory. So, Kale McLeish, hot take, Illumination Theory is actually a really good song. I don't get the hate. Yes, the orchestral section feels out of place, but everything else is really great. JG3 says, Illumination Theory has James's only bad vocal moment I've ever heard in studio. The ending bit, never know, never know, never know, times 10, whatever. He says, some of those notes just don't sound right. Yeah, I could see that. It doesn't really bother me or stand out to me like that, but I could see where it might get on someone's nerve. Joe Gebhardt, Breaking the Fourth Wall version is fantastic. That actually was when I interviewed John Petrucci for the Breaking the Fourth Wall release. That's the song that he picked, because the show I was on, the Classic Metal Show, every interview they let when they do an interview, they let the artist pick a song to play immediately after the interview, and he picked the live version of Illumination Theory, which was hilarious because my buddy Chris Aiken is not a Dream Theater fan, He doesn't like the long stuff. So when John picked Illumination Theory, I was dying. It was so funny. We got off there and he's like, oh man.
It's fitting for his undisciplined opinion right there on full display.
Exactly. All right. So my second to last choice, before I get to my number one, I have the piano version of Wither. And that one, it was, I don't remember. I think it was on one of the extended versions of Black Clouds, but I know I found it just on Amazon Music, and I didn't know it existed until a few years ago. I was like, wow, what is this? And I've always thought Wither is a cool song, but man, have you ever heard the piano version of this one, like the solo piano version?
I have. It's cool. It's not as cool as the Rickroll version of this. Have you seen that? There's a video that said "Never gonna wither." Like whoever did it is a genius. It's absolutely perfect. But no, the
awesome.
piano version of this is awesome. I mean, we talked before about it. Wither's such a weird, goofy song that this doesn't seem to fit on that album at all. But then that album is sort of eclectic in terms of stuff fitting together. But yeah, the piano, I definitely prefer the piano version. I kind of forgot it was out there, but I have heard it. It is awesome.
Yeah, that's definitely one of my favorite James vocals. Again, the emotional stuff. Look at Kale. This is Wither. Oh, you mean the soft version of Invisible Monster? Those songs don't sound anything alike, Kale. Cut it out.
I know what he's talking about.
Well, I don't.
Yeah,
where would you get Invisible Monster out of Wither? That
there's a similarity in the melody.
No, I'm calling you on that one, Kale, and therefore I'm calling you on it too, Brian. That's crap. That's a crap take. Oh, okay. He says lyrically. Okay, we got to specify that, Kale. I mean, lyrically, yeah, I guess so. But I mean, Invisible Monster is about like self-doubt and anxiety and stuff, whereas Wither is about writer's block.
No, I thought it was about a tree. So, but I kind of went out on a limb thinking that, I guess, anyway.
We're not going to do this,
right,
or else I'm going to bow out of the show. So
okay, I'll leave it alone then. What do we got?
Oh, you stole that one from me. Oh man, I'm barking up the wrong tree here. So
okay,
all right, let's not do that. So anyway, yeah, the piano version of Wither, I've loved the intimacy of it. I think it really brings out something extra in the song, and I mean, I actually prefer it to the regular version, and I really like the regular version of the song, the standard album version, but the piano version to me is just beautiful. So
oh wait, hang on, I just got another text from Mike Portnoy. He says Descent of the Nomax is his favorite LaBrie moment. That's not funny, Mike. I don't know why he keeps doing this.
He texted me and said Machine Chatter was his
right.
highlight of the astonishing. So all right, before I get to my number one, what is next on your list? How many do you have left? Because you have a few more than I do.
Just two.
Okay.
So right. I have, this one surprisingly is not number one, but we've beat this one to death about how much we love the breakdown, the mellow part of Nightmare to Remember.
Yes.
The bathing in beautiful agony bridge part, like over those really cool, clean guitars.
Yep, their most beautiful melody ever, in my opinion.
Yep. So that absolutely had to make it in here. I could not leave that out.
Okay. Yeah. I don't really have much to add. Like you said, we've talked about it a lot. That bridge is just absolutely beautiful. I mean, everything just comes together. I mean, every part works melodically, just completely in sync, and it's just perfect. And so very good call there. Very good call there. All right, my number one, James LaBrie vocal performance. You may think this is cheating, and this may be kind of a common answer for a lot of fans. I chose the entire Astonishing album. I think while it doesn't have the crazy screaming high notes of something like Awake, what he did on that album is absolutely incredible. To voice that many different characters, to do them differently, distinctly, but still sound like himself. And again, imparting the emotion into it. the emotion from the characters. You know, when he's singing, you know, the nefarious parts, like he sounds like a bad guy. You know, he goes into his head voice when he's doing stuff like Faith and whatnot.
Yep.
You know, even just the differences between, you know, the brothers. I mean, you know, Gabriel and Aris, it's like, it's just staggering what he was able to accomplish on that record. And, you know, I had read reviews of that before, you know, the record came out, and I was like, okay, I'm interested to hear this. And man, it hit me right away. I was like, man, they aren't kidding. So, you know, as much as I said earlier that, you know, Another Day, the song is kind of like, I think when we all think of Dream Theater, at least for a lot of us that have been, you know, with the band for several years, you kind of think of Another Day and, you know, maybe some other stuff on Images is like, okay, that's James LaBrie. You know, I think this record is equivalent to that. It's, if you want to hear everything that James can do, you just put on The Astonishing and just off you go.
Yeah, you had to figure it was going to be a really good performance because, you know, Petrucci, you know, basically wrote this whole thing, and if there was something that he didn't like the way that James sang on it, you know, he could have easily went out and said, okay, you know, I have this concept idea. I know I'm asking a lot of you to try to do all this. This is probably too much, you know. Let's go. We'll go ahead and get 3 other, you know, guest people or 4 other guest people to do all these parts. And I'm guessing he just gave James some direction, and James came back and he just heard it and goes, wow, this is exactly what I wanted. He nailed it, you know.
Well, actually, the way that Petrucci described it was his initial idea was to get multiple singers for the parts. But James said, hey, let me do this. Like, okay. I can do it all. And I think they might have done some demos or something. I think he demoed some tracks to show like that he could do the different characters. And John was like, holy crap. Said, yep, you got it. So, right, okay. But yeah, I mean, yeah, the initial idea was to have multiple vocalists, and James shot that down because he was able to absolutely knock it out of the park. So, you know, look at JG3. I'm going to have to throw the red challenge flag on that, John. JG3 is challenging the ruling of allowing the entire album of The Astonishing in the James LaBrie vocal moment list. Well, it's my show, man. And guess what? I'm allowing it. So your challenge has been, you know, the ruling on the field stands as called. You're charged a timeout.
No, if I flag you for targeting and it holds up, you have to miss the first half of the next episode. At least that's how college football does it with Ohio State players.
Exactly.
Like the guy makes a penalty in the first 5 seconds, and so he has to be out for a whole game.
Yeah. Look at Kale. He's out of line, but he's right. I would assume, Kale, you're talking about me being out of line choosing a whole record, but yep, he used a cheat code. There it is. Yep.
We did miss, though. JG3 put in the ending of the Count of Tuscany, and of course, you know, for me to not put Count of Tuscany in there is kind of beyond absurd. But it did not make my list.
I was kind of surprised about that. Yeah, he says the other great melody on that record is the ending of the Count of Tuscany, going back to your, you know, Nightmare to Remember.
Yep.
Yeah, when you pulled out Illumination Theory, I was like, no Count of Tuscany for you. That's interesting. But you know, I have a lot of favorite songs that I wouldn't put on on greatest vocal performance list. I mean, they're very good, but yeah, you know, I can't say a lot of these are like my absolute favorite Dream Theater songs. It's just the vocal performances are great. So, all right, so my number 1 was The Astonishing record. Kale, We the People versus John's Decisions here. Nice. It's devolved into fan on fan hate on Talking Into Infinity. All right, so what is your number 1?
You're gonna be blown away by this one. My number 1 comes from your favorite Dream Theater album, Take Away My Pain.
Wow, really?
I put the entire song. I love everything about every note in this melody and the bridge, that part where the final scene, the actor. I love that. Love that part of the song. I don't know. It's just,
that's awesome.
The lyrics of it are amazing. It's just it's a super clean song with a great piano. You know, I love the guitars in it. The guitars could easily muddy up the song, but they don't, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just a super clean recording with just a ginormous hook of a melody that that really hits you. You know, it's a very emotionally powerful. And I don't know, the first time I ever heard that song, we talked before about, you know, Falling Into Infinity was never like, you know, I don't have the same, I don't want to say disdain for it as Awake, but kind of was never that big a thing. But the first time I heard Take Away My Pain, I was just like, this is an absolute masterpiece of a song.
Yeah. You're not going to get any arguments from me on that one. Obviously, it's my favorite record. I'll have to. Did I ever send you the YouTube video I found of these two guys doing like an acoustic cover of this one?
I think you did.
Oh my God!
But I don't remember it. I think you did. I think I remember it being pretty awesome.
Yeah, I'll have to see if I can share that on our show page. Man, I forget how I found it, but holy God, is it beautiful! These guys have great singing voices, and they're playing kind of like on a Spanish flamenco style guitar. They're not doing anything crazy with it. It's just a really respectful, just beautiful, mellow version of the song. But yeah, I'm with you. It's a fantastic melody. Again, I think this is a great example of James taking, the lyrical content and really adding the emotion to it. It's about John Petrucci's father passing away, and yeah, I completely agree with you. Like every part of the melodies from start to finish is just completely on point. And yeah, I agree with you completely. So JG3, I think the acoustic version on the Falling Into Infinity demos is really good as well. Yeah, that's very good take, Jay. I forgot about that one, and you are absolutely correct. That is a great version of it. All right, look at Joe. He's leaving, man. What the heck? He says, "It's been fun as always. Have to go put my son back to bed. See you in 2 weeks." All right, got to do the dad thing. We'll let you go. See you in a couple weeks, man. Thanks for hanging out, brother. Appreciate you, man. All right, so let's see here. Let's get into some B-sides. We'll see what we had on our list besides our top list here. Kale says, "Surprised we haven't mentioned Scarred or Voices. Tracks full of absolute vocal gold. Full highs, absolutely beautiful subdued moments, all around vocal showcases for James." Voices is actually on my B-side list. So I would agree with you there. I love the song. That's one of those songs got like a really cool vibe to it. And again, James, like you said, really does show off, and it's got those big screams in it. Like I said earlier, Awake is it's like a vocal showcase for him. So, what did you have as some honorable mentions?
So let's see. I had a couple. I think we already talked about Lifting Shadows off a Dream.
Mm-hmm.
Someone said Hollow Years.
Okay.
And I kind of was shocked I didn't put that. I wonder if you were surprised I didn't put this in there, but it was close. Surrounded.
I wondered if you were going to go with that one.
Yeah.
But I think that one for you kind of stands out more for the piano stuff.
It does, but I love that throws the shutters all across the wall. When it starts, when it goes up high there, and another one I had to get, of course, another dramatic turn of events. Beneath the Surface. I love that song. It reminds me of like it's kind of like a Lucky Man ELP with that Moog solo in the middle that Jordan does. But I love that song. Like it's kind of similar to Take Away My Pain, in my opinion, where it's just like there's no wrong. The melody just, I don't know, every little note is just perfectly placed, perfectly counts, and it's gold.
Okay. JG3 brings up one of my top Dream Theater songs. The other one I would give an honorable mention to is The Great Debate. I love that song, but I can't say that I would say that's like a huge James LaBrie showcase. So that's why that one was not on my list or in my B-sides. Kale McLeish, here's one that I'm surprised neither of us have. Gran's throwing me Spirit Carries On as one of her favorite vocal moments too. Gran, you are definitely not wrong. And honestly, I left that off because I thought it was so glaringly obvious that I didn't want to have that duh moment. Yeah. So, it'd be like, on a Metallica songs list, like, oh, Master of Puppets. Like, everyone would kind of feel like, let's hold off on that. Everybody likes that song. So that's the only reason why I didn't have that on there, but I definitely think that's that's one of those songs that just no matter how they do it, it's just more powerful live. No matter what tour, no matter, if James is on or off, there's something about that vocal that just comes out of him in just such an incredible way, no matter what.
Well, it's one of those too that, like you said, if it's live, I mean, the entire audience is singing along once it gets to the chorus, especially, towards the end there, like just, basically screaming their heads off, singing along with them. And
Yep.
that's if there's no better sign than how great a vocal part is a song, it's it's when getting everybody else to sing in on it, because they're so moved by it.
Yeah, and it's cool, man, because as soon as they'll do that kind of like lead in, and a lot of the fans that really pay attention to the live releases and stuff, like kind of from the key pattern that what's coming. But for those people that don't, all of a sudden when you get this, where do we come from? The whole place like, yeah, like Spirit Carries On. So the other two that I had Goodnight Kiss from the 6 Degrees suite. Again, when he's doing the voice of the parent, like he's kind of in a more female voice, like the head voice, it's just I think it's awesome. And I've always really liked Anna Lee from Falling into Infinity. Again, it's obvious it's my favorite record, but something about it is just I don't know. I think that's another one of those ones where the way he delivers the vocal fits the music and the lyric really, really well. There's a little bit of desperation to it, and also a little bit of resignation, I suppose would be the word I would use. So it's always been very interesting to me. Again, it's a very dry vocal. I mean, you just used that term with another song, but it's a very dry, very dry vocal, and I've always really liked it.
It was funny when I was, I kind of kept going back to 6 Degrees, and I'm like, man, I want to pick something off here, and it would have been Kiss Goodnight if I did. I had actually contemplated that, and I'm like, I love it as, I love the whole thing as an album and as a concept, and I've really grown to appreciate it, way more than I did when I first heard it. Sure. But I just couldn't quite bring myself to put something on there, it's definitely not taking away any of his performances on there, because the whole band is like, they couldn't be more on their A game than that entire album. Probably totally from 99% of the fans are going to say that,
Totally agree. All right, so well, that's all I got. So why don't we kind of close up for the evening here? Another spirited discussion. I'm surprised that we actually disagreed on a few things. Namely Bridges in the Sky, I think was the one for me. I was like, But I'm not surprised that you pulled something off of that record. You're a huge fan of that one. So we'll have to it'll be interesting when we do the deep dive into that, considering that you think that I hate it.
Well, it's not that I think that you hate it. I know that you hate it.
Well, we will see when we do our deep dive, man. We will see. So, so our next show is going to be in 2 weeks. So it'll be on Thursday, November 18th, right here. Like I said, Facebook, YouTube, talkingintoinfinity.com, the CMSnetwork.com, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we have to pick a topic for that night, man. We have all of our December shows lined out, and we don't have the next one lined out. So we're going to have to come up with something. So it's going to be, I would really like to, surprise people. So I'm trying to think if we have anything, because we came up with a whole bunch of stuff that we haven't touched on yet. So it'd be interesting to kind of.
What about something like, what's your favorite chord progression that they use?
Chord.
Like an A minor chord goes to like an E major chord.
See, unfortunately, I'm terrible with actual music notation, so I'd be absolutely worthless on that episode. Kind of like your, pronunciation of chord is worthless right now. But
should we answer Kale's question? What's our favorite moment from View? I don't know if we could do a whole podcast on that, so maybe we should just answer
Astonishing recast. Look at Kale. He says, okay, so what's your favorite moment from View from the Top of the World? James moment? Honestly, I'm going to go with the Alien. That's the vocal that still stands out to me. He does some really interesting rhythmic things in the verses, and I just think it's very unique. I'd never heard him do some of the things he does in that song. So I'm going with the Alien as my favorite vocal moment. What about you?
I like the chorus towards the end of Transcending Time, where it almost kind of turns into a round, and it's like it's got the harmony on top of itself, and he's holding it out. And I'm interested to see, because I can't see how live without a track they'd be able to pull. That's clearly him singing those parts when it's sustaining out like that.
Yeah, very much so.
But if it's on a track, it's on a track. At this point, I don't care. But I love the way it sounds, especially with those swirling guitars behind it. Like that's still my favorite song, and I love the melody he sings on that. Even though it's there's nothing incredibly, fascinating or different about it, but it just fits perfect.
Yep, totally agree. Well, so again, we will be back here on November 18th at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Again, our next couple shows, 2 shows actually, we got to come up with topics, but December 16th, I think, are we in agreement? We're going to do the Images and Words, that big Images and Words show that night. So,
sounds good to me.
All right, so we are going to do our Images and Words deep dive on December 16th. And along with our deep dive, we're actually going to have Monty Colvin from the Galactic Cowboys on the show, who's going to talk about the tour for Images and Words. So we're kind of doing a double shot of Images and Words on December 16th. And then for all you guys listening or watching the video currently or on the replay, December 23rd, we're going to do our big fan hangout where we want to get you guys on camera with us. So if you want to jump on camera, obviously, Kale, you've been on. Our buddy Tommy, who was on earlier, he's been on with us. Adam Rishog, a bunch of people. Just send us an email at talkingintoinfinity@gmail.com, and we would love to have you guys on for a few minutes. You guys can pick whatever Dream Theater topic you want to talk about. If you want to ask a general music question about something, feel free. Brian will know way more about that than I would, unless you're talking about Van Halen, in which case, feel free to ask me about Van Halen. So we want you guys to actually be on the show on camera. So it's just going to be a free for all for all of us to actually hang out right before Christmas. For Kale, as he said, Christmas Eve sounds fun. Yeah, it'll be Christmas Eve for you, man. It'll be the day before for us here in the States.
I think what we're going to have to do, we will have to have everyone sign a waiver because I don't want you, John, getting into a David Ellefson situation if we're going to be doing a bunch of stuff live on camera.
That's really gross. That's really gross.
Too soon?
It's really gross, man. So anyway, so those are our 2 big things coming up in December. And as I said, we will be back here, right here on Heavy Metal Television, on cmsnetwork.com, talkingintoinfinity.com, Facebook, and YouTube, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Thursday, November 18th. So one more time, thank you to all you guys that took part in the chat tonight. Kale and JG and Tommy and Joe Gebhardt, all you guys. Adam Rishaw, great to see you. Thanks again. And Brian, another great episode, man. I will see you in 2 weeks, buddy.
Peace.